We would like to thank your sponsor, Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union and a member-owned financial cooperative serving the Okanagan, Similkameen, and Thompson regions. They offer a wide range of banking and investment services for individuals and families. Valley First also has a talented business and commercial team to provide the expertise, products, and services local businesses need to grow and thrive.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Business Matters presented by Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union, where we delve into the stories and insights of leaders and change makers in our community. As always, I'm your host, Rob Capello, and today we're thrilled to have Tracey Gazel, a coach, consultant, writer, and visionary behind Rising Higher Consulting. Tracey, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. So today, I think you have a real interesting combination of expertise in psychology and executive coaching, neuroscience. There's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of rolls into what you do. So I'm excited to kind of unpack your journey and your approach to coaching. And so I'd love to start just as I was looking through your profile and history and reading your bio is I'm curious how your personal journey led to coaching. So where and when did you realize that you had a passion for this? When was it where you're like, yeah, I want to do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah, so there were two pivotal moments.
Okay.
The first was quite young. I was 20 years old. At the time, I was always running around kind of like a chicken with my head cut off. Quite a high anxious person, high stress, very busy mind, very much a worrier, but that was just normal to me.
Yeah.
And I was in my psychology degree at the time. And it all came to a crux when I broke out with these tiny red sores all over my body, at the time from stress. I didn't know that at the time. I saw multiple doctors. I saw a dermatologist who also didn't know what it was. In fact, she asked if she could take photos of me for her medical students so they could delve into the mystery. So that didn't feel great at the time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, and the one thing that helped me was there was a flyer. I was going to UBCO here in Kelowna, taking my psych degree, and there was a flyer for a workshop to try meditating. So I thought maybe this will help me after it had been a few months that I'd been covering up, wearing hats and scarves and just in quite a bad state. And so I tried this workshop with a local teacher. His name's Duncan Hart, by the way, he's amazing. And he walked me through a process for the first time ever. I had no experience meditating. The first time ever going inside and finding my center that is always calm. It's always quiet. It's always peaceful. And to say that I was shocked to find that inside while I'd been running around, like I said, like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to find it outside, to find it inside was absolutely shocking. It had been there all along. And now I know that's the space that meditators access when they meditate. Sometimes that's called the flow state, right? When we're working in that flow state, or we're being creative, or we're just being so present with our family. Say we're up at Big White and it's a bluebird day, like we were talking about before the recording. And you're having one of those days where it's just, wow, I'm so lucky to be here. And you're just in that moment. That's that space inside that we all have. So that was amazing. So that's actually what helped clear up all those spots, helped me realize that at any time I could find that inside of me and really bring down stress levels, bring down a busy mind.
Yeah.
So then after that, graduated, worked for 10 years in a corporate position.
Okay.
And then in 2015, my dad passed away from a terminal neurodegenerative disease. It's quite rare. It's called multiple systems atrophy. Most people haven't heard of it. It starts out looking like Parkinson's disease, and then it quickly progresses and becomes apparent. It's this more serious, painful terminal disease that just has no hope. It's just a terminal disease. And we were really close. So that was very difficult. So he passed away while I was holding his hand at the hospice here. And after he passed away, suddenly the rest of my life felt like this gift that I had. He was gone. He didn't even make it to his retirement.
Right.
But I had the whole rest of my life ahead of me. I was in my late 20s then. Okay. So what did I want to do with it? Well, I realized I wanted to create my dream business where I help other people find that peaceful center inside of them. That had helped me so much. And so I started as a meditation teacher, teaching people one-on-one and in groups. But then they would come to me with those deep, dark voices inside. I'd ask them to commit to meditate once a day, 5-10 minutes, and they would say, I'm not good enough. I can't change. I'm hopeless. So that's when I did coaching training.
Right.
To learn how to hold those conversations with them. And from there, it just progressed to mindfulness and neuroscience coaching training, executive coaching training, to today, where now I work with executives and I help them feel more calm. I help them live with less stress at work and at home, because often at home it can be just as stressful at work.
Yeah.
And I work with people all around the world remotely, and I love what I do. So that's how I got here.
What an interesting story, and there's so much there to talk about. I'm curious. So it's interesting that you meet a lot of people that have either a passion or a talent, and that's one thing. But to actually action it and start a company and help others is a different thing. So where did that come from? I'm curious. I'm always like, did you have entrepreneurship in your family around you? Like, because to go do it on your own is a lot different than just saying I have a passion or talent for this.
Yeah, great question. My dad was an entrepreneur. My mom is a real estate agent in Kelowna here. My brother's an entrepreneur. And I always said, I never want to do that. And that's why I went and got the government job, because I didn't want the entrepreneur life after seeing it all in my family. I just thought I want a steady Eddie. But that desire, that passion became too strong, after my dad passed away, that I just needed to go for it. And if it didn't work out, that was going to be okay.
Right.
I just wanted to give it a try and see what would happen and see if it would work. And then it did, which was amazing.
Do you recall your first coaching experience? Like, when you're sitting across someone, maybe an executive, and I can't remember, where, I don't know exactly where you were when you did your first coaching experience, but was it like, wow, like this is what I'm meant to do after that session? Or were the opposite, going, oh my gosh, what have I got myself into?
No, I've always known this is what I meant to do. I originally planned to be a psychologist, but I realized I didn't want to do reactive mental health help. I wanted to do proactive help. I love talking to people about their goals. I love helping people that have a vision for the future. And so I can remember there's been lots of times having that experience of, wow, this is exactly where I need to be, and it's working, and it's changing other people's lives, and how amazing that this is my job. It feels like a dream sometimes.
Interesting. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Rising Higher Consulting, the services you offer, what's the elevator speech on sort of what you do and how you work with both leaders. And it sounds like you work a little bit in not just the business world, on their home life as well. Can you talk a little bit about the company and what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So I work with business leaders, founders, and executives. And what I find is these people that are so driven, they are so inspired to create big change in the world. But what happens along the way is they often become stressed, overwhelmed, and even burnt out. And they're just not sure how to course correct and return back to their original inspiration again. So that's where I come in. I help them use their mind in a different way, so that they lower stress, so that they feel inspired by their work again, so that they can turn work off at the end of the day. That one's huge. And be present with family at home, still enjoy their life, and then accomplish the big goals that they have on their heart.
Interesting. When I was reading through your site and so forth, one thing that stood out was you emphasize the importance of, I think, clarity of mind, I believe is what it said. So can you explain what that means and why that's crucial for, leaders and the people that you work with?
Yeah, I would love to. It's my favorite topic. So when we were talking about earlier, that meditative space inside, that quiet space that we all have, that we access through meditation or other ways.
Right.
So every single person has that calm space inside of them. That's the background to our experience. That's who we really are. That's our true nature.
Right. Okay.
And all that we do is innocently as we think ourselves away from that space. So the busier our mind is, the more distracted we are from our calm nature. And that calm nature is our clarity of mind. And when we live from that space, when we work from that space, that's when we have a sharpened focus. That's when we're more efficient. We have higher productivity because we just have less mental noise.
Right. Interesting. So you mentioned on that though that you've also said that meditation is necessary to access a meditative state of mind. So can you expand on that? Because I think these 2 points kind of go together.
Yeah, yeah. So meditation's great. I meditated for years. What I found is, so I'd get up every morning, 5 a.m., meditate, feel amazing. But it was as if my stress and my anxiety, my worry was just waiting for me to finish.
Interesting. Okay.
So I would open my eyes, I'd feel great, and then shoot, there would be my stress, my worry, anxiety, and I would live there for the rest of the day, still in that space. So I was meditating, but I wasn't integrating that state of mind, that clarity of mind into the rest of my day. And
Interesting.
so, how you can then start to integrate that for yourself is recognizing that calm center. It comes through on a feeling. So even when we talk about it, about being peaceful, about being calm and content, it elicits a nice feeling that's sometimes described as light, as carefree, as calm. And so that is that clarity of mind. That's that meditative state that we can access anytime throughout the day. Even in this conversation, it feels like we're tapping into it.
Yeah.
And so you don't necessarily need meditation. And so it's a reminder throughout the day as you start to feel stressed, tense, overwhelmed, that you can always bring yourself back, reset yourself at any time because it's always inside of you. It never leaves. It can never be broken or taken from you. It's there 24/7. It's the most amazing discovery that I had that I just want to shout from the rooftops with everyone in the world.
Interesting. So when if you're saying like when you're meditating, when you're in that moment, your mind's at that state, but soon as you break that meditative state, then you're like, then you worry about all the worries that are going on in life. Then you have to start
Yeah.
your interesting. It's interesting 'cause I find that that's I love going to like seminars and you go away, you're in an all day session, you're all excited, and then you come back to life and life happens and everything you learn in those 8 hours are out the window because like you start it's I kind of equate it to the same sort of analogy, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's right. And you can see that in so many ways. Some people go to India to find themselves or
Right, right, right,
travel or go on vacation to calm down. But then you come home and
mm,
there's everything waiting for you. And that's okay. It's just starting to recognize when you come back from a seminar, you come back from vacation, you're still going to have those old habits of thought that you're used to running like a program
right,
in
right,
your mind, but you don't have to necessarily listen to them. It's recognizing them from a third person and letting them go, letting them continue on. You know, in meditation, they say like a leaf floating down the stream,
right,
just letting it pass you by because another thought will be right there,
right.
which are bad.
Yeah,
We think 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day. That's what neuroscience estimates.
that's crazy.
It is crazy. So we're all super busy up here. It's okay. It's part of being human. And it's just starting to recognize you don't have to listen to everything you think. Everything you think isn't true. You
Yeah,
don't have to action everything you think. And then once you get clear, you know, you separate yourself more and more from those habitual thoughts. You can choose which ones that you want to listen to.
interesting. I'm curious, you've worked with a lot of leaders. What are some of and we've probably talked to some about them already a little bit, but what are some of the common challenges you see facing leaders today? Like what are some of the things that, and maybe from an aspect of leaders listening that to this conversation to just maybe go, yeah, that's me. Like that's part of so what are some of the challenges that you see people facing right now in a leadership role?
Yeah, lots. Big one is sleep.
Mhm.
I love helping with sleep.
Okay.
There's a neuroscience of sleep, sleep cycles, how to really optimize sleep, wake up feeling rested. A big one is triggers at work.
Interesting.
Um, and I work with all men, by the way. I didn't go out choosing that or looking for
Ah,
that, but it seems to be not only a lot of men in the higher level positions, but also it seems men that aren't as quick to ask for help when they are having difficulty accessing their well-being.
right.
So a common issue with men in executive levels that I see are triggering situations at work where something is frustrating, overwhelming them, upsetting them, and they're very quick to react. Whether that means getting kind of that high blood pressure feeling, getting very flustered and upset, or getting interactive or speaking something that they later regret. So a big thing that I help with all my clients is recognizing when they're being triggered. Do we have a few minutes and I can share kind of something that's
Yeah.
helpful with this? Okay.
100%.
I could talk about this all day. So if you need to cut me off at
No,
any time, just let me know.
right. No.
The neuroscience of it is really interesting, actually. So back in the caveman days, of course, a threat was something like a saber-toothed tiger, a bear, something coming into our path that was a threat to our survival. And when we would see, say, a saber-toothed tiger, it would initiate our fight or flight response in the brain, right? So that's the amygdala, which is our highly emotional area of the brain. We would go into fight or flight. 75% of our cognitive abilities are inhibited at that time. So basically, we're not thinking straight. We're just thinking fight or flight.
Right.
Today, in the modern world, threats to our survival are now, say, in the corporate world, are dealing with interactions in the boardroom, interactions with coworkers, and dealing with stress at work. So it's not saber-tooth tigers, it's boardroom stuff. But we're having the same response in our brain. So we're often triggered in our amygdala, which is that emotional response, and we go into fight or flight. So we either want to fight and have a confrontation, or we want to flight, we want to run or freeze and not know what to do. So the good news is, and how this can be dealt with differently, is by inserting a pause after a triggering situation. And it's very important to recognize how you respond to triggering situations as well. So a lot of people, they get flustered. They notice their heart rate increases. They start breathing faster, taking short breaths up here in the throat. They maybe start sweating, getting hot, clenching their fists, tension in the neck and shoulders. I'm listing them all out here, but for everyone who's listening, take a mental note of what your physical symptoms are when you get triggered, when you get upset. So the next time that happens, you can say, oh, like for me, I get tension in my neck. I get these knots. I can go, oh, there's that knot feeling in my neck. Oh, I'm getting upset. Well, I'm getting flustered. Someone I was talking to yesterday, he called it a high blood pressure feeling. So, oh, I'm getting that high blood pressure feeling right now. Oh, I'm getting triggered. And when you recognize it, then you can insert a pause. So, and in that pause, taking nice deep breaths can be enough to just create that pause in your brain. 5 deep breaths. If you can, going for a walk around the block, doing something to create space there. And when you create that space, you actually reroute that area in the brain. So away from the amygdala in the middle of the brain,
Right.
and over here to the prefrontal cortex in the forehead. And so that's our rational part of the mind where we think rationally. We weigh pros and cons. We choose a different response instead of going right into fight or flight. So it's all about inserting that pause consciously instead of just quickly flying off the handle and slipping into old habits.
Well, it's interesting too, because I feel like a lot of us probably, if we think back, you're like, we're all probably like, oh yeah, now I get it. This is what happens to me, and this is all and everyone's different, like you said, everyone acts differently, and handles it differently as well. But interesting, I would assume most people that are listening can probably reflect and go, this is my trigger, or this is what happens when I get triggered. Interesting. That's it. One of the things that sort of kind of ties to that is that, and this is a tough one for me, and I assume a lot of leaders, is the struggle with work-life balance. I've always struggled in the sense that I don't see it as, I've never looked at it as work-life balance. It's just, it's part of life, and I enjoy what I do, so it's okay. But what advice do you have for those looking to maybe find a little bit more peace or enjoyment in life, and how do you guide clients through that? And at the same time, where I'm pretty driven as a business owner, so I do have ambitious goals for my company, but I'm also a family guy, right? So how do you balance and how do you work with people around that?
Yeah, great question. And I'm the same, by the way, business owner, I'm a mom, and it's how do I balance all these things? I'm driven. I want to write like 10 books. Like, how am I supposed to fit all this in? I hear you. It's good to be driven, but it's also great to find that off switch or that pause switch, and for our own mental health as well. So what I recommend first is using your morning for that time for work-life balance. Establishing a consistent morning routine is so key, because what we often do is we try and save that for the end of the day. Like, oh, at the end of the day, I'll have some time for me. But always at the end of the day, especially if you have kids or you're busy at home, it falls off the list, right? We just don't get to it. We're too tired. So in the morning, waking up a little bit earlier than usual, so 15 minutes or 30 minutes. If you have a busy household, trying to wake up before everyone wakes up. That's what I do. I try and get up before my daughter.
Yeah.
And then I have my coffee in quiet and stillness. So it's still kind of like a meditation, but it's just, for me, it's just quiet. So it's accessing that calm, peaceful state every single day. So that's my reset that I insert every 15 minutes every day. And that way I know I can check it off my list for the day too. It's not all day like, oh, I got to get to that work-life balance thing. Like, oh, I can't squeeze it in. No, you do it first thing in the day and then it's taken care of. You start your day on a really great note. You reset yourself. And then when fires arise, as they do for business owners, for parents, for workers, whoever, you can recognize, oh, I'm getting stressed. Oh, I'm getting triggered. This isn't where I want to be. And then you just keep bringing yourself back. You respond, bring yourself back. But the mornings are key. That's one of my biggest recommendations.
Interesting. And then it just becomes part of your life or right after a while. So that's interesting. That's a great takeaway for people. So you mentioned about you want to write hundreds of books, but you did co-author a book, Transforming Trauma. I'm curious if you can just give us like one key lesson from the book. Like if someone reads the book, what do you hope they get out of it? Yeah, in where you think there's value from a leader perspective.
Yeah, for sure. So key lesson from my chapter. So it's a multi-author book written with some people from The Secret. My chapter is about bad things happen in life, right? That's part of life. Life is this ebb and this flow. It's unrealistic to expect life to be easy and perfect. And so for me, my big thing that I mentioned was my dad passing away. So we all have these terrible things that we have to go through, but we get to choose how we respond. Will it take us down and make us bitter and angry, or will we choose to be inspired by it? And maybe not in that moment.
Right.
When my dad passed away, I wasn't feeling very inspired. It took years to get over it, but then I felt inspired to create my business.
Interesting. And that kind of ties, I was curious on you're open, you openly share some of overcoming some of your personal challenges. And if people go onto your website, I think I love like, here's a bio and here's a real bio. Like I love that sort of that you had on there. But how are those, and maybe you kind of just touched on a little bit about how are those experiences, how did they shape sort of your coaching philosophy and the way you work with leaders today? Like some of the stuff that you had to go through personally.
Yeah, it shapes everything. There's a lot of coaches out there. There's a lot of information out there. We're in the age of information. And so the best thing that I can do in my business, and I would say others can do in their business, is sharing their story. And then when you share those deep things, you find people similar to you that are looking for help with something you've been through. So me talking about being sensitive or feeling very anxious all the time or having a really busy mind, feeling overwhelmed, those were huge in shaping me, and then they shaped my business because that's what I love to help with, because I can see the other side of it. When you learn to use your mind differently, life becomes this, you just feel free. It becomes this gift that you get to live, you get to create, you get to enjoy. Life just becomes, the circumstances itself don't change that much. The world is still highly stressful, I would argue, with the politics happening, with our economy, with elections, with the climate. You can stack all these things, the pandemic on top of each other. The world itself doesn't change, but how you show up and how you choose to live your life changes. And we all have that ability inside of us. And so that's why I share so deeply, so that I can show what's possible for everyone.
Interesting. A little bit of a different question is, you work with leaders a lot. What would you tell someone though that is aspiring to become a coach, that maybe wants to go in the field of leadership, personal development? They're listening or going like, wow, that's something I'd love to maybe pursue. What's some advice you would give to someone that's looking to make this a career?
Yeah, great question. I would say start with, if you could share one message with the whole world, if you had some kind of megaphone that would just go into the ear of every single person in the world, what would you want to say? What would you want to help with? And that's where you should start. It's easy to get hung up on, oh, I want to work with leaders, or I used to work with sensitive people, or I used to, there's all these different things. And then all the marketing out there can be very overwhelming. But start with what you're most passionate about, what your message is, how you want to help with that, and then just share from your heart, share from your experiences, and it will unfold from there. I promise it becomes this magic carpet ride, but you need to get really clear on exactly how you want to serve, because it's essentially serving others and help.
Interesting. Love it. Great advice to people. So we didn't cover everything, unfortunately. You can't cover everything in 30 minutes, but if people are interested in learning more, have questions, what's the best way for them to connect with you and find out more?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn pretty much every day. So definitely check out my LinkedIn. My website is tracygazel.com. Send me an email, lots of different ways. If you're listening to this and it helped you in any way and you just have a general comment, I love hearing that. I love hearing from the people that watch and listen and read my stuff, or any questions for me. Yeah, I'd love to hear from anyone. Just feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, Tracey, thank you so much for joining me today. I think you've given some good takeaways for people. And I know like I said, we don't have a lot of time, but I think it was great that you were able to give away some actionable items that people can take away. So thank you for spending some time with me this morning. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No problem. If you enjoyed today's episode, as always, please share the podcast so we can get the word out to as many friends and colleagues as you can. And until next time, thank you for tuning into Business Matters and have yourself a great day. Thanks, Tracey.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We would like to thank your sponsor, Valley First, a division of First West Credit Union and a member-owned financial cooperative serving the Okanagan, Similkameen, and Thompson regions. They offer a wide range of banking and investment services for individuals and families. Valley First also has a talented business and commercial team to provide the expertise, products, and services local businesses need to grow and thrive.